Hi Alan. To build this gun, the kit, you're going to have to take your gun apart, and I'm going to show you most of the stages, and some of it is purely just you doing the reverse to get a result. So to start with, your hop unit. You'll need to take the hop out of the gun completely, and you'll need to take all the screws. There'll be 4 little screws and 1 slightly longer screw out of the hop unit, and you'll end up with the hop lever, and you'll end up with a little tiny indent plunger with a spring. Don't lose that. And you'll have these arms. By putting it back together now, you should be able to work out how to take it apart if you've never done it before. So on your barrel you will have your hop rubber. Your hop rubber on the inside has got a ridge. You should be able to find that ridge. So there's the ridge there. Let me show you clearly. There's the ridge there. That ridge goes into a ridge that's also on your barrel. So you'll find a ridge. So you just have to match up the two. Where is it? There it is. And pop it over the top. Now you'll know when it's in because it will be smooth. If you've got it in the wrong place, you'll end up with a big lump sticking up, and then you just rotate it and you'll actually feel it click in. And also the rubber just goes up snug until it can't go any further. Once that's on the rubber, you've got this lump here. This lump here goes into this slot here. The other things is on the barrel you've got 2 little cutouts, one there and one 180 degrees on the other side there. These line up with this little tiny ridge here and this little tiny ridge here. So to start with, you put this lump into that slot, and you'll see there it is. See, there's a ridge in the slot. And once it's in there, you just get, that will already be in there. You just get the other half and you place it on the top. And if it's all lined up, the halves will go together with the seam joining up. If it's not lined up, they just won't go together. You'll end up with a few millimeters gap. So once it's in, it's all quite solid, and that's it. The reason you've got to do this is the hop unit I've sent you has got this tapped hole here, this tapped hole here, and this hole here has been enlarged to make it stronger. That's why. Once you've got the 2 halves together, you get one of the short screws, and you just put that one in. This will hold the whole thing together and you're sorted. Right. The next bit to go in will be the hop arm. My one looks a little bit different because I've profiled mine so it just lifts the heavier weights. So the hop arm goes in like this. This hole here lines up with this screw hole here, and the 2 teeth go down. So that's it in there. Once it's in, you get the longest one of these 4 screws and you put it through, and this screw is the pivot arm, which isn't ideal for Northwich to design that because you've got it pivoting on a thread rather than on a smooth bar. Right, once that's in, your hop arm will move up and down. The next thing you do is you've got the 2 halves. On the halves you've got this pointy bit here. Also on the arms you have got, where is it? You have got, not that bit. We'll work it out as we go along. Right. So that arm there, that long pointy arm, goes above the hop like this, and so when it goes forwards and backwards it pushes the arm up and down, and so that half just slots on that half. The other half has this little indent plunger and spring. So the little indent plunger and spring goes in that hole at the end. So spring in first, so the little plunger is poking forwards. The little plunger goes against this rack. You've got a few things to line up. Make sure that the plunger's there. This rod here pokes through the hole there, and these two clip on there. Once it's there, just make sure it clicks. If it clicks, you know the plunger's in its place and it's doing its job. Okay? Once that's done, you've got 3 screws left. One there, one there, because it's plastic, nip them up just over hand tight. They strip really easily. Once you've got that together, can't remember what that screw's for, I'll work it out in a minute. Once that's together, that's your hop unit back together. You've got your arm, you've already changed this arm once. You'll know that it fits on. Mine might look slightly different because I had to drill an extra hole on mine to make sure, because mine was getting a bit loose. So I drilled 2 holes. But then the arm, and you've got your 2 screws, and you can just put your 2 screws back in. One. Now I don't know how much of a tech you are. You sound as if you know what you're doing. But if ever you wanted to do that hop adjustment, this is what they're talking about. You cut the inside bit of a pen, disposable pen, and you cut it so it's just the right length to fit in that groove there. And when you're putting this black bit on, that arm, you just feed it through this. And all it means is that black arm is now, in theory, the thickness of this wall wider, so it will push this down just a bit more. So when you're on full hop, it just pushes the hop arm down just the extra millimetre, which is enough to lift the 0.5s. Once you've got to that stage, easy, we'll go on to the next bit. Okay, part 2. Right, you've already removed your outer barrel to get to the hop unit, and to do that, if you remember, you had to take out the screw in your RIS rail, the fake one, and you had to take out the little tiny grub screw underneath, and the grub screw went through and pinched down on this thread and stopped it rotating. You've also taken off your mag well. So you've taken that off, you've taken that out. Make sure that inside your glide ring, and I thoroughly recommend, if you haven't done already, to get the tight ones, because it makes a big difference, I find, a lot more accurate. And then you use this modified one that I've made here. Okay, so this one, what I've done is I've got that PTFE tape, plumber's tape. It's like a white nylon tape, and I just put 2 or 3 wraps around the thread just to pack it out, because I noticed that the threads aren't really tight, not as tight as I'd like them. You've got the remnants. I haven't got any PTFE tape with me. It's somewhere under the floorboards in my old house somewhere. So screw this in. Make sure you've got your glide rail, your glide ring in place. Now screw it up Now you'll notice that it screws up and it goes in too far, yeah, because it doesn't line up. Unscrew it a little bit until, looking from the side, this cutout is kind of flat with the gun being held in its normal position. Okay. Then what you can do is you can get your mag well and you can put your mag well back on. You'll know what position you've got it in. If it's wrong, it doesn't line up. You can see that when it's in the right position, it all just looks right and fits together right. If you've got it wrong, nothing lines up. You turn it a bit and then, oh, there you go. If you want to get really fancy, you can get a straight edge and you can measure all the holes and everything are all in the center line if you want to make sure it's absolutely perfect. But to be honest, it doesn't make an enormous amount of difference. You've got the rear one, which mine's slightly different. I think I lost my one at one stage and I just replaced it with another one. So that one there goes in. The front one doesn't go in at the moment. Okay. Once you've got that, you are ready to put this inside your new stock. So that would be part 3. Okay, next part, your new stock. So this is a real K98 stock. You'll notice some of the things you've got. You've got a hole at the back here. You've got a hole here that goes through this bar, this reinforcing bar. You've got a hole here with a thread, with a screw. You've got a hole here, which goes through this bit here. And you've got this front sling guard, which slides, believe it or not, up and down this bit here. So what you do is you get your bit that you've made so far with the new adapted bit on the front, and you place it in. Now you'll notice it just slots in. Okay, it's designed to slot straight in. That hole at the back will line up. Everything else is lined up. Now this bit here should be nice and parallel with the sides. If you notice that one of these is sticking up a lot more than the other one, yeah, it shouldn't. They should be about equally spaced. Doesn't make an enormous difference. It just means that you're going to have to tilt the gun a 1 degree or 1 degree the other way to get it to shoot absolutely straight, but that's just a natural thing you'll do anyway. The next thing you want to do is you want to put your barrel and your hop arm that you've done, you need to put that in. And the way you do that is you slide it underneath the front rail, slide it in all the way, and then with the hop arm sticking forwards, I cock my gun just to get the nozzle out the way, and it fits in there. Okay, just fits in there. Now don't worry about getting this spot on, because what you need to do is you use this supplied screw. This supplied screw goes through the bottom, and what this does is that screw actually goes into this hole in the hop unit. This is why I strengthened this hole, because this actually holds a lot of the gun together. So that screw, you can see it's gonna go through. Right, okay, here's a problem you might come across. It's not lining up. It's not lining up just right. The reason is this needs to come out one more turn. Let me do that quickly so I'll show you. Right. One turn. Okay. You would have needed to take this off. The reason I didn't is because I've actually stripped the thread here. But this is on my gun, not on your kit. Yeah. So I just turn that out one more turn. What I'll do is for you, I'm going to scratch on the bottom bit here where you can't see. I'll scratch a line there. And so hopefully now you'll be able to see exactly how far you need to screw it in until that scratch line there is lined up. So let me put it in again. Right. Okay, now that bolt, that screw lines up nicely with the hole. Okay. Hop unit, you slide that through. Get the hop unit with the arm in place, and then with a little bit of wiggling just to make sure that the screw is lining up. Let's find the hole. Oh, there's the hole. Do it up. Now, you do it up reasonably tight, okay? Reasonably tight. Okay, so that is now solid in there. And now when people complain with their gun about it banging and knocking, and they a lot of people suggest that you have to move the arms and undo the screws and stuff, this is what they're talking about. The end of your nozzle hitting the edge of that hole as it goes in the hop. You, unlike everyone else, can actually see it because of the way I've designed this. If you find that this is really banging, loosen or tighten up the screw just an eighth of a turn or so until you get it nice and smooth. A little knocking is expected. Nearly all the SSGs do it. But if it's really going bang and stopping, it's because this is too high or it's too low. So by doing the screw a little bit or undoing a little bit, you're micro adjusting the height of the hop unit, which is what other people are doing on their guns, but they can't actually see it. Right, once that's in, you can put your trigger guard back on. My trigger guard is broken. I broke it making this gun, but it doesn't make any difference. Trigger guard to slot straight in as normal. Same bolts, same length, nothing's different. Right, so far, just going to pull the trigger because I don't like this spring being pulled just that long. Right, we're on to the next final bit, so I'll do that in the next video. Right, we were wondering about the extra screw from doing the hop unit. Don't worry, it was a mistake. The spare hop unit, this is the one I've been waiting to come from Taiwan. It came out of that. So it wasn't actually part of the gun. So you would have actually not have had this. So don't worry about it when I was talking about it before. You didn't need it. Right, in this stage of the gun, we're now going to put on the outer barrel. You've got a bit of blued steel. And I've had this, there's a hole drilled and tapped at the end. This is a genuine arm. If you can see, oh, where's my pointy stick? In there, there's a tiny little screw, and that screw clamps this onto here. Right, this is how it works for real with a real gun. I've put a dot there and a dot there. They should line up. This is how, when I used this gun, I did my one skirmish. I did it to make sure it was accurate. Once they're in, you've got this, which is the sight blade. This is a real sight blade. You can tell it's got the Waffen marks all over it, unfortunately, so there's a load of German marks all over this gun. This is the original sight blade. It goes in with the slope, yeah, also the slope, the higher bit goes towards you and it slides in. I've adapted it slightly. You used to have to use a tool to put these in. It's like a, you know, a real sitting there with a clamp, right? Mine's, I've adjusted it so it just fits in now. If you're shooting this, well, when you're shooting this, if you want to use the iron sights and you want to adjust this, you can move it slightly from one side to the other, so that's kind of like your windage. Now hopefully you've got a pair of circlip pliers or something similar. This here is the shroud that goes around the front sight. Now in the Second World War, apparently a lot of the German soldiers took the shroud off. They found it actually got in the way of aiming quickly. But you open up slightly, spring it, it's made of spring steel, it goes into the two slots and you let go and it just sits there. And once that's on, what you have done is I took a screwdriver with me on my first game and I would put this in and I could sit there and I could move this slide over one way or the other if I wanted to play with the accuracy of it. Should be okay. Now, this needs this little adapter. This little adapter goes under the barrel, it just slides on to about there. On the barrel I got electrical tape and there's about maybe 1 or 2 turns there and there, just until it's really nice fit in this to remove any wobble. This is the same as your barrel spaces you'd normally have. It's going to make it really accurate because there's going to be no wobble at all. So electrical tape, I literally was about a turn. You slide that over, you slide it through that adapter all the way down and it will go onto this rubberized block here, which is your stabilizer for it. And once it's all in position, the screw underneath here, you do up and you have to mess around a little bit to make sure it goes in the hole in the barrel. I think right. There's the hole. There's the screw. So I just need to line them up. Right. Let me fiddle with this and I'll come back. Right, that took me a little bit of fiddling, but if you keep turning it around, you'll do it. What I recommend is, when you screw this up, it's going to be tight, but you want to make sure, well, I think it's important, that you get the space around the outside of the barrel about equal. If you notice that there's a big space at the top here, maybe do it up another half a turn until you think it's held tight and it's not pulling on the barrel. You can't really go wrong. There's a big nylon block here I've put in that stops this going down too far. But if you want to be really precise, you can do it up and you can look at the little gap there and you can think, yeah, that's about right, that looks good. If you don't understand what I mean, just do it up tight. You can't really go wrong. This spacer here, remember this space at the top? Slide it. I don't know if you can see, but these 2 fingers need to go either side of these slots. The reason there's a spacer here is you can't buy the barrel, the rod, that's the same as gun. They just don't allow you to buy it in the UK because in case you go out and make yourself a gun. So I've had to use 1mm smaller diameter, and that's why we had to use a spacer. Once you've got it, this here is your end piece. There's a hole there. The hole goes on the right hand side. Okay, that slides on and clips on there. Now you'll spot my obvious mistake. I put the shroud on too early. There you go. So that slides on over the top of that, and remember, this just needs to fit in there. Okay. And before you go any further, this goes on. You can see the edges there line up. Your guard, you slide it as far as it will go down. And can you see there? All snug as a bug. This here, clever bit of German engineering, this little spring clip. The end with the step goes in there. So the step goes in there. And now you've got this little spring bit. What you do is you push the spring in, you pull that slide over the top, and then the button pops in. If you've got this sort of spacer right, you won't be able to see it. I've got a little bit of spacer showing there, so let me just it was this bit here that was stopping this moving around. So when that's, keep that in the right place. Make sure that the cutouts here are the same where those arms are there. You can put this back on, slide that down. Make sure that these two little plastic fingers either side of the cutout, put in the step, and then you can slide this back over. Now you can't see that well. I could get another millimetre, but you can get it into a position where that's flush and you don't see the spacer. Once that's done, you've got the last little bit to do. This is your 100-year-old genuine sight. Goes on over the top. You've got the little flanged bit, goes over the wood here. And it goes on, so the arm lifts up that way. Okay, you'll notice the two holes either side on the hop unit line up with the holes on the sight. We get these two little grub screws, and have I got the right tool? No, damn, it's gone magnetic on me. Put them in, screw them up. Now they go in at a slight angle, they don't go in at 90 degrees. They go in at a slight angle because they go towards the center of the hop unit for maximum strength. So if you can see that slight angle that it's at now, I just don't want you trying to put it in the wrong angle and cross the threads. These can do up quite tight. And once that's there, the gun is complete. Your sight, I found about, that's all the way off, I found about there was actually accurate for 60 meters. You can obviously just put your normal scope on if you like. Magazine fits in nicely. Sorry, dog. Oh, and it was loaded. Right, that is all done. You've got the sling included. It is annoying, it flaps around, but this is the general design. And it looks like it's a genuine sling because it's got the waffen marks on it again. Oh, one last thing. You have got a genuine World War II rod. Fits in there, screws up. I recommend you pinch up. In the war, they said that often people lost their cleaning rods because they came undone all the time. So make sure that that's done up nice and tight. You can't actually use it in the gun, unfortunately, because it's exactly 6mm and you'll probably scratch the inside of the barrel. So there you go, all done.